Hello, I am Adriana Kirby, and this is my presentation on Ann Radcliffe. This is my biography on Ann Radcliffe. She was born Ann Ward in 1764, and she was an only child. She married at the age of 23, and her husband actually encouraged her to write her novels, which was great during this time because, as we all know, women were not viewed equal to men yet. So they didn't do a whole lot outside of, what their husbands would allow them to do. So it was great that he encouraged her to write and actually publish her novels, or we wouldn't have them today. There wasn't a whole lot else that I could find out about her personal life because she kept to herself. She stayed indoors. She was shy. She was kind of reclusive. So there wasn't a whole lot recorded about her other than the travels that she took with her husband, which she actually published herself in a travel journal. So since people, didn't really see her out and about in town a whole lot, she kind of stayed to herself, they started to make up rumors. And some of them that I read were kind of funny. One of them said that her writing was so terrifying that it had driven her mad and put her into a lunatic asylum. Another one I read said that she ate raw meat before bed to summon up the nightmares that would fuel her imagination to write these gothic novels. So just kind of silly stuff like that I found to be rather funny because people didn't see a whole lot of her since she was shy. So other than that, the only thing I found was that her father died in 1798 and then her mom died 2 years later. And this was around the time that she kind of stopped writing a whole lot, and people kind of contributed that to her parents' death and her having to take care of their affairs, their property, and whatnot. And she actually died from complications of pneumonia. She had really bad asthma later on in life, and once she contracted a bronchial infection, which led to pneumonia, it was fatal due to her asthma, and she actually died at the age of 99. This is a timeline I put together of Ann Radcliffe's life from birth to death, and the world history and inventions and whatnot that was happening during the course of her life. And this was actually inspired from a previous class assignment where we took authors and placed them beside world history that was happening during their lifetime, so we could kind of judge, what influenced their writing, what they were writing through and about. And it was kind of cool just to picture what life was like for them. So in summary here, Ann Radcliffe was born in 1764, and about 30 years later was when George Washington was elected the first U.S. president. She also lived to see the first passenger railroad invented in England. The first photograph was taken during her lifetime. Edgar Allan Poe died. Moby Dick was published. So she lived through a lot of really important events. And during this time, we know that women weren't allowed to vote. They weren't viewed equal to men. They couldn't control property. And she actually couldn't attend a university because she was a female. So times were really different. This is another timeline of Ann Radcliffe's. Instead of world history, this is some of the novels that she published. So you can kind of place when she wrote what. And to my understanding, she actually quit writing Gothic novels around in her 30s. And a lot of people said it was because of the criticism that she was getting for writing them during this time. So the last one she actually published was in 1797, and it was called The Italian. Now, there was another work published after she died, but it was just a historical romance. And she also wrote a travel journal that I didn't include in this timeline. This is a cool artifact that I found during my research of Ann Radcliffe that actually shows her handwriting. It was a letter from her to her mother-in-law, and I think it was discovered quite recently, and it is the only known artifact from her life. So if you could not read her handwriting, this is actually what the letter says. And it is in two parts because that is the only surviving parts. There's actually part of it missing. So basically it was a letter to her mother-in-law, and I kind of enjoyed it because she gets kind of sassy. She basically says, you know, if you want to complain about money, come and live with us and we will provide for you. I wanted to include these because I thought that they were really cool. This is actually in the 5th edition of Mysteries of Udolpho, and these are illustrations that face the title page, and at the bottom of each illustration is the chapter and page number, which you're supposed to reference, that shows the scene that's depicted. So they're highly dramatic, they're keeping in with the Gothic style. I just thought they looked really awesome. These are two notes on Radcliffe's work that I found within my research that I just wanted to include in the presentation. I thought that they were really helpful in understanding her style of writing and how she progressed as a writer. I chose to read part of The Mysteries of Udolpho by Ann Radcliffe. This was her 4th novel, her most popular one. It's pretty long, it's 654 pages, but it contains every element of Gothic literature that you would expect. It has the eerie castle, the dark, gloomy weather, mysteries, supernatural events. And one thing about Ann Radcliffe is in her novels, all of the supernatural events she explains towards the end that somehow connects to natural causes. So nothing is really, you know, ghosts, goblins, supernatural things. So I don't want to give away too much of the novel, but this is kind of when our main character Emily moves into this castle, and her maid is telling her a story about one of the women that used to live in the castle who disappeared. She actually fell in love with someone that she couldn't marry, and she refused to marry the owner of the castle, and then she went missing. So here it goes. Oh, and the maid's name is Annette, just if you're wondering. So it goes, Annette still kept her eyes on the lamp and proceeded in a lower voice. It was one evening, they say, at the latter end of the year. It might be about the middle of September, I suppose, or the beginning of October. Nay, for that matter, it might be November, for that too is the latter end of the year. But that I cannot say for certain, because they did not tell me for certain themselves. However, it was at the latter end of the year this grand lady walked out of the castle into the woods below, as she had often done before. All alone, only her maid was with her. The wind blew cold, and strewed the leaves about, and whistled dismally among those great old chestnut trees that we passed, mademoiselle, as we came to the castle, for Bendito shewed me the trees as he was talking. The wind blew cold, and her woman would have persuaded her to return, but all would not do, for she was fond of walking in the woods at evening time, and if the leaves were falling about her, so much the better. Well, they saw her go down among the woods, but night came, and she did not return. 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock came, and no lady. Well, the servants thought, to be sure, some accident had befallen her, and they went out to seek her. They searched all night long, but could not find her, or any trace of her, and from that day to this, mademoiselle, she has never been heard of. Is this true, Annette? Said Emily, in much surprise. True, madam, said Annette, with a look of horror. Yes, it is true indeed, But they do say," she added, lowering her voice, "they do say that the Signora has been seen several times since, walking in the woods and about the castle in the night. Several of the old servants who remained here some time after declare they saw her, and since then she has been seen by some of the vassals who have happened to be in the castle at night. Carlo, the old steward, could tell such things, they say, if he would."